by militants. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine says that terrorists were firing from Dokuchayevsk, controlled by them. The militants have accused the Ukrainian soldiers of this attack. 10 people were killed at the place. Sometime later, 2 more and 3 people died in the hospital yesterday. Passengers who have survived are telling how it was. The video of the conversation appeared in the internet.
I was going from Kharkiv region to Volnovakha to get on a bus and go home to Donetsk. I was born and lived all my life in Donetsk. And where we were going, we approached the first roadblock. And there were 2 buses in front of us. Nearly 2 minutes passed, and we felt a great explosion. Our bus was deformed, the doors were wedged, all windows were broken. Some pieces hurt my head and bones. One man who was 25 and seated nearby was killed and fell on me. All the people on the bus, there were many of them, passengers, even in the aisle, all fell. Everything was shed with blood. We have arrived at the roadblock. There was a bus before us. We came to the end of the bus but stopped to move as that bus was under examination. And suddenly there was such a great explosion that the bus jumped, everything flew out. I stood nearby the entrance door, I bent, my acquainted girls were staying. I do not remember everything, there was such noise.
The parliament collects signatures for expressing distrust to Prosecutor General Vitaly Yarema. The initiator of signatures collection is Anti-Corruption Committee Chairman, Deputy of Samopomich Party, Yegor Sobolev. According to him, under the chairmanship of Yarema, the prosecutor's office sabotages the investigation of the previous government crimes and does not stop current corruption. At this moment, there are 76 signatures of members of parliament on the document. If there are 150 signatures collected, a resolution of distrust to Yarema will be put to vote.
Even not all the ex-officials from Yanukovych team who are persecuted in the EU are not persecuted in Ukraine. I do not even mention that no case is brought to court, there is no judgment on any case and no initiatives for extradition.
Vitaly Yarema himself promises to comment on the initiative of MPs on his retirement tomorrow. On Friday, he will report to the Verkhovna Rada on the progress of investigation of the events on Maidan. Russia will try to turn the war in the Donbass into the long conflict with the depletion of economic, military, moral and psychological potential of Ukraine. This was stated by Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council in the parliament. According to Alexander Turchinov, along the eastern part of the Ukrainian-Russian border, there are about 52,000 Russian soldiers in full combat readiness. They have over 300 tanks, almost 2,000 armored vehicles, more than 750 artillery systems and multiple rocket launchers, up to 360 combat aircrafts and attack helicopters. This amount of weapons and soldiers could attest to the neighbors' plans to begin a full-scale war, Turchinov said. Today, the parliament has voted in favor of the next wave of partial mobilization. Call-up procedure for the ATO zone will start on the 20th of January. Who will be called up? Our correspondent knows.
Nothing in the session hall of the Verkhovna Rada reminds of the day of mourning in Ukraine. Even the national flag is not lowered. The MPs remember about the day of mourning at about 11 o'clock, and they announced a minute of silence for the victims in Volnovakha. After that, the MPs started to discuss whom to mobilize to Donbass. The Secretary of the SNDC, Alexander Turchinov, represented the presidential variant of the bill. He told about the Russian aggression. According to him, mobilization is needed to keep Ukrainian positions since soldiers serving there more than a year need rotation. Our heroes have fulfilled their duties, so they have to be rotated, beside those who expressed a desire to stay in lines of armed forces, and new military servicemen will change them. According to the bill, Ukrainian male will undergo mobilization for 3 times. First of all, patriots will be sent to Donbass. Then the priority will be given to specialists in military forces. Also, those who are registered in the Ministry of Social Policy will be taken to army. The mobilization will start from the 20th of January. Turchinov promises that everyone will be supplied with clothes and special equipment. In order to avoid mistakes and disadvantages of the first waves of mobilization, the Ministry of Defense, General Staff, National Guard and Border Service have to pay attention to the fact that all the military servicemen, all bound to military service, have to be mobilized being fully equipped with clothes, boots, weapons and means of personal safety. The coalition factions support the mobilization bill unanimously. The opposition bloc is only against. They declare that will vote for in case the first article of the bill will contain the position that higher officials will also be mobilized. Mobilization, the whole presidential administration, the cabinet of ministers, the NSDC, Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine in full, that we are ready to support the resolution. So my question to you is, please tell me, do you have enough political will to declare the mobilization of the whole Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine and replace our troops for MP's troops? Thank you. As for mobilization of those categories that you said, in the first place we will call upon those deputies who really care publicly for Donbas residents, but in fact work for another country. 268. A bill giving ability to mobilize the MPs was registered by Народный Front faction. The MPs themselves say that they are ready to go to front. If it will be a direct rotation to the forefront, I agree. I even agreed to stay in Pisky and bring ammunition to our soldiers. However, I disagree to stay somewhere in rear than here on my working place, as it is wrong. You ask whether the MPs are ready to go to trenches. I've come from trenches here. Honestly, here I feel easier than there. So if the parliament is dissolved and sent to trenches, I will be glad to go. I'm general. Why I shouldn't be ready to command a division, a brigade, even a front without doubts? Sure, along with Prime Minister, President, all the MPs and all the members of the Cabinet and President's administration. As any bound to military service, I am a reserve officer. If such a decision is made, that won't be a right, but a duty. The MPs promised to consider the bill shortly. Yana Tanchenko, Dmitro Babak, Vadim Timofeyev, Yulia Reshitko, First Ukraine.
The parliament has allowed people who work in the ATO zone to go for an unpaid leave. However, they are required to return to the company after the end of the operation. Also, parents of children with disabilities will receive additional leave. Such a law was passed by the parliament today. Now Ukrainians raising children with disabilities of worst forms will have rest 10 days longer every year.
It is perfect and really solves this social issue and gives the social guarantees to these people that are at these difficult times for present days raise such kids. There are more than 55,000 of families that raise such kids.
The president vetoed the law on the moratorium on collection of property of citizens, provided for a bail of foreign currency loans. I returned it to Parliament with my proposals, the website of the Verkhovna Rada reported. Let me recall, the MPs approved the law last year. It prohibits to confiscate dwellings from borrowers for outstanding loans on the basis of notary's executive inscription and to forcibly evict people. The association, called Ukrainian Credit and Bank Union, then said the law violates all legal guarantees and transfers losses due to a sharp devaluation of hryvnia exclusively on banks and depositors.
It's an unexpected thing for me and for a committee and for people touched by this law. What we are going to do? Certainly, the next week for us is a work in committees. I think that our task, first of all, is to solve this matter as soon as possible with the restructuring of debts in the main and not to give the opportunity to the bankers or foes to move out people from their only home.
Sanctions for Russia, weapons for Ukraine. The European Parliament condemns Russian aggression and calls on to help Ukrainian authorities. After yesterday's parliamentary debate in Strasbourg, the resolution was adopted. It does not bear legal force. It is more like recommendations and signals to the European Commission and the EU leaders who take decisions. These signals were studied by our correspondent.
Not to cancel sanctions against Russia and vice versa to implement new restrictions in the nuclear and financial spheres if Russia won't stop the destabilization of the situation. This is what members of the European Parliament in the approved resolution are urging too. The European Parliament offers to the Council of the European Union to approve the further restrictions and to expand the sphere of their use to make sanctions concern the nuclear sector and limit the ability of Russian enterprises to conduct the international financial procedures. The European Parliament advises to the European Union member countries to start delivery of the weapon to Ukraine. In July, the Council of the European Union cancelled the relevant prohibition. The politics of Kremlin, according to the European Parliament opinion, threatens the unity and independence of Ukraine and creates the potential danger to the European Union itself. The European Parliament condemns the unannounced hybrid war against Ukraine that includes the informational war with the elements of a cyber war, the use of regular and irregular forces, propaganda, energetic blackmailing, economical pressure, diplomatic and political destabilization, from the resolution of the European Parliament. The European legislators advised the European Union member countries that haven't done this before to ratify the agreement about the association before Eastern Partnership Summit in Riga in May, and for Kiev to create the Ministry of European Integration. The European Parliament urged the European Commission to create the strategy of the fight against the Russian propaganda. To the opinion of the European parliamentarians, it is directed against the European Union, its eastern neighbors, and Russia itself. The European Parliament offers to the European Commission to create the plan of the humanitarian aid to Ukraine within 2 months. Kiev needs the further financial support to overcome this crisis, the resolution says. The European Parliament invites the European Commission and European Union member countries to create a plan of aid for Ukraine on the basis of the principle more for more, specifying to activate its efforts in giving an aid to Ukraine, in particular through the organization of the donor conference and cooperation with the international financial institutions to define the further steps of economical and financial sanitation of Ukraine. At the same time, resolution doesn't have the point of the recognition of the Donetsk and Luhansk People Republics as the terroristic organization. A day before, this point was offered to be included in the project of a document by the European Conservatives and Reformist faction. A.Zaharchenko, First Ukraine.
The US and Great Britain promises to continue to put pressure on Russia in order to resolve the Ukrainian crisis diplomatically. This was written by two leaders in an article for the Times newspaper. The column was called, "We will not let drown the voice of freedom. If we allow such a fundamental violation of international law to go unpunished, we will suffer," David Cameron and Barack Obama wrote. The international community will not tolerate attempts of Russia to destabilize the situation in Ukraine. Obama and Cameron's article begins with history. The politicians remember how 200 years ago their countries antagonized, but now their relationship has radically improved, and they are ready to present a united front against the pressing challenges of our time. These are activities of Al-Qaeda and extreme forms of Islamism. Mass protest in Gyumri. In the city of Gyumri, several thousand people gathered at the 102nd Russian military base. They were demanding to transmit Russian soldier Valery Peremyakov to Armenian justice, who is suspected of murdering a local family. People were restrained by the police. Some clashes appeared. According to the Armenian newspaper, several participants fainted. Let me recall, Armenian police accused Russian soldier Peremyakov of killing the family, 6 people in total. This soldier confessed to the crime. Dog traveler, black Labrador named Eclipse, loves to spend time in the park, not waiting for his master to lead it there. Smart 4-legged creature goes for a walk alone by bus. It occupies a free space inside the bus, not barking, behaving politely, and going to the right stop. The dog traveler is well known by bus drivers on the route and passengers as well. And no one objects to such a companion. The only problem is that the dog does not remember the way back, and its master has to take him back home. It was the United Country newscast by First Ukraine. You can find more details at our website, firsttoday.com. Taras Chechko was working for you in the studio. We wish you only good news. Take care and goodbye.